Jenny, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be my first interviewee on my new series, talking about design. And Jenny, you're the principal and founder of KLC School of Design, author, and also more recently an OBE. So, tell me about, first of all, I want to know about the OBE. So, what was that like? And, did you know about it before it was announced?
Well, just before I even mention anything about the OBE, can I say what a great idea I think this webinar series of yours is, and how very honored I am to be your first guest on it. Regarding your question about the OBE, it came completely out of the blue. It was the most wonderful surprise. It's a very reaffirming thing to have some sort of external endorsement like that. But then, so my first reaction was tremendous excitement, and then a slight sort of diffidence, because I then thought, well, all the people who were congratulating me, I thought, well, shouldn't they have one? And shouldn't they have one? They've done all these wonderful things. And but anyway, it was a lovely, lovely moment.
And did you know in advance? Did you have to keep it a secret, or because obviously we all found out on New Year's Day, and we were all messaging you and saying congratulations, wonderful news?
It's true. I knew about 6 weeks before, but a letter, a very smart official letter comes, and absolutely you are sworn to secrecy, and you get the strong feeling that one word and you will blow it. So,
so was it difficult? Were you just sort of bursting, share this? Or
of course, you long to tell family and friends, but you can't. But anyway, then it can all be shared when it comes out.
Absolutely, and again, congratulations. And again, it's just it's such an honor for you. But again, this kind of feeds back into the interior design industry, because this accolade that the work that you're doing, is being recognized, so we all benefit from it. So the next thing I wanted to ask you was about KLC itself. So you founded KLC in the 1980s. So, the interior design industry, you've obviously seen, many changes. So how do you think the interior design industry has changed since you started?
Well, I mean, it's rather a dull answer, really, but I think it's much, much more professional. And that's not to say it was a lovely industry, but there was no regulation. It was regarded as something that ladies did, that they enjoyed doing, but nobody called it a profession. And architects were very dismissive. And I like to think that KLC has played a small part, and certainly the British Institute of Interior Design, which I've been involved with and things, between all of us working, it is much, much more regarded as a profession.
Yes.
So to me, that's the big positive. And of course, it's so much more technical now than it ever was. That's another major change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think KLC has had a huge part to play in that, really, in terms of making, students and graduates industry ready, to get out there and get working and be seen as a professional, and having a professional qualification. So, I guess we can't have this conversation without mentioning coronavirus, and this crisis, and, how it's hit all of us. So, we've all had to sort of move to working remotely. Even you and I are having this conversation remotely. I haven't seen you since, March, the beginning of March. So, we're all having to sort of adapt. So how are you finding it?
It's been a very strange period, hasn't it? I mean, I am in awe of how wonderfully people have adapted. I think routine is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a lot of the students were deeply worried, the on-site students, as to how they'd cope online. And I'm thrilled that many of them are actually saying that they found it a very, very positive experience, and they can see, the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of leads on to my next question again about how we're all having to pivot, schools and universities. My children are learning, at home, remotely, online, lots of us are having to sort of pivot and how to work out teaching remotely for the first time. But uh, we know that this is something that KLC has been offering for, quite some time now. We have an open learning department, which we have been running for, a very long time. We also have blended learning, which incorporates, both on-site and remote learning. So, I work in the open learning department, but I've never asked the question, and I've always wanted to know. How did the Open Learning Department begin? Why did you decide to offer this, as an option?
Well, I think primarily because it made it so much more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
There we were in London, and only people who prepared either to drive into London, travel into London, or who lived in London could take advantage of it. Also, if you run anything on site, you've obviously got much bigger overheads than if you run something online. So not only did it make it sort of easier, it also meant it could be more affordable for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say, I mean, there we are with students in some 90 plus countries studying with us who couldn't otherwise do so.
Yes.
I remember in the early days discovering that we had quite a few prisoners who were studying online with us. I remember we had a very elderly gentleman who was then part of the royal household at Buckingham Palace, who was studying with us online. It was just so delightful to discover all these characters, able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I work in the open learning department, and I love that we have students from, all over the world, and all, they have whatever commitments, that mean that they can't come in on site. Some people are traveling, they travel with work or their family every few years. So they pick up. And so we've had students who perhaps have done one part of their building construction course and they're living in Malaysia. So they're doing it on their house in Malaysia. And then, a couple of years down the line, they need to do the next part of that submission. So they say, I'm now living in Switzerland. Can I do the interior part based on that? And it's just fascinating because you really do get to sort of see how people live all over the world. And when did you start the open learning course? When did you start to offer that? Because I've been there for 10 years. So I know it was going well before.
The first ones we started were in the early 80s. They were only 2 or 3 years after we got going.
Yeah, so it was pretty much sort of alongside. So it's as old as KLC itself.
Practically. And I'm ashamed to tell you, I mean, in those days, of course, it was manual based, and not nearly the sort of interactive experience it is now.
Well,
I and another colleague wrote the first set of manuals, and we were surprised at the take up, and we found we were sort of writing, we were only about a manual ahead as fast as they were producing the work.
Fantastic. And that's what I was going to ask you. How much has the open learning course changed from those days when it was manual to now? Because I think students would be, or potential students would be really interested to know and how, it has changed and adapted with sort of advances in technology.
Oh, it's advanced beyond recognition. I mean, it was a very passive experience. You got your manuals, you did your work, you got your feedback. Excuse me, I'm going to cough now. And on you went from there. These days, as you know, because you teach in that department, the high levels of support, how interactive, there are videos, there are quizzes, there's so much more support to keep you going, to keep your interest up. Because I don't know about you, but I think it's amazing the way people manage their lives. They may be working, they've got families, they're juggling everything, and yet they still find the time and the motivation to sit down and do this.
Absolutely. I have the utmost respect for our open learning students, because the standard of work they produce, and they're able to get this done with everything else and working remotely, because they're working alone at home without that support of a classroom being on site. But I guess all of our students are having to to adapt to that now. But have you found, you know, have you had an increase in students, you know, signing up for courses, for on-site courses? Do you think that lockdown has had an effect, that people are at home, they're perhaps on furlough, and they're now deciding to do something that they've wanted to do for a long time?
Very much so. We've had huge interest in the online certificate course, particularly because I think people felt that in lockdown that was a sort of manageable thing that they could do. And we've had such sort of enthusiastic dialogue with them. Yes, and I mean it's been lovely that we've had that product, if you like, that service ready for them to
I know, but
take up.
when you established it first that this would be, you know, because you were kind of crisis ready, for want of a better word. And I don't mean to belittle this awful, you know, pandemic. But I think when, you know, so many schools were having to, you know, and universities and colleges having to just switch online overnight, whereas, you know, KLC, I think more than most, were ready to go. You know, you had all of those materials there, you had the setup. So, you know, I think being able to switch quite quickly has worked really well in your favor.
We've been incredibly fortunate. And there was a little bit of inter-house training for some people who weren't so used to working in this way. I think most of all, we needed to gain the confidence of on-site students who didn't sign up for that method of study. They, and because of coronavirus, suddenly they were faced with so many things to cope with at home. The staff were facing it yourself, homeschooling, worry about elderly parents, financial concerns. So, with all of this going on, it's been such a huge change in people's lives. But yes, we were lucky because we had the expertise, we had the technological platform, and none of us knows where it's going to go from here. But if we need to switch backwards and forwards from online to on site, we can now do that completely seamlessly.
Yeah. I mean, you know, thankfully you're in a good position now, and I think having all of that has really sort of, you know, that you're hearing, you know, schools and kind of talking about blended learning like it's a new thing, and it's a new thing for them they're having to do. But we've been doing blended learning for years now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's worked really, really well. So, you know, in terms of your on-site courses during the pandemic, that seems to, you know, students seem to have adjusted quite well, because I guess they were probably worried that they weren't going to get the level of teaching that they were going to miss out, and perhaps those students had given themselves a year or a set amount of time to complete this course, and were then worried that was going to impact on their other plans. But it seems to be working quite well. So looking forward, you know, to later in the year, so, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, you must be thinking about, you know, opening the school back up. And looking to doing that, because obviously this is what we want to do, get back to sort of a kind of a normal. So how is the school going to adapt, do you think, in terms of opening back up to students, and what will change now after lockdown?
Well, first of all, we've sort of done a survey with our existing students who are continuing their studies, and interestingly, quite a lot of them want to remain studying mainly online. So the priority for us is the new students who are joining us. We've had, because of oversight, we had to make a decision a little while ago as to what we would do. And we're definitely going for the first term to aim for blended learning. So they can have some of the on-site experience, but also some of the bits that we know work really well online, they can have that. So it's almost, you can watch a lecture as homework. And then when you are on site, you can have your workshop, your interaction, your instant feedback and everything there. So it's a very constructive way of doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the preparations and following the government guidelines is a big challenge.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
Yeah, we're fortunate being in the design center because they have invested hugely, and So they've got automatic things to take your temperature as you walk
Oh,
through.
fantastic. Mm-hmm.
You know, they're setting up the systems. But we have the studio space so that we can put people in the small groups they'll need to be well spaced out. We'll have the glass screens and the hygiene where it's needed. But we will try and create as normal an experience and make people feel that KLC welcome and support,
Yeah.
you know, that we always do.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's just a big change, and you know, safety. I mean, health. You know, and safety. It's a real thing now. It's not just a sort of a box ticking exercise. It's the priority now that people are safe, and to avoid outbreaks, you know, and to avoid more sort of mini lockdowns. But I guess thinking sort of generally, how do you think interior designers themselves are going to have to adapt to changing circumstances, and how do you think interior design itself will change post coronavirus?
Well, interior designers, it's interesting. I mean, I've been talking to quite a few, obviously.
Mm.
And certainly in the residential sector, they are remarkably upbeat and positive, and new projects seem to be coming in. I mean, you know, stating the obvious, because everybody's been at home for a period, people are reflecting on how their homes are working for them and whether they need quieter spaces to work or whatever it is for the future. So, you know, work is coming through from that. Inevitably, with what's happened, the commercial sector of design is going to go more slowly. It's going to be
Yeah.
tougher
Mm-hmm.
for them to bounce back, you know, but they will. They will.
Yeah.
I think, and there's lots of different talk about what people will do, but always in a downturn, it makes good sense to broaden the scope of what you offer so that your eggs are not so much in one basket. So
Yeah.
I think designers will be, you know, thinking about having careers maybe more in things like this, in doing webinars, in writing, maybe in designing ranges of their own wallpapers or furniture, uh, offering different elements of their service.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a very creative lot, designers, and they're good
Yeah.
at problem solving. So I think we'll
Yes,
see.
and you know, absolutely, and we're very adaptable, and we always, I mean, interior design changes constantly, so we have to be on top of that and aware of that. And I just think there is going to be looking at, probably even in residential, you know, doors where you can open them without handles, maybe with your feet, or, you know, just these hygiene measures, so that if people do have to self-isolate within the home, that there are more closed spaces to do that, perhaps more ensuite bathrooms, all of these things that will sort of come out. But I know that you've got, I'm just moving on now, so I know that you've got the graduate ceremony coming up, because I got an invite to it. It's virtual this year, but I did want to say that you've obviously seen thousands of graduates pass through KLC, the doors of KLC, over the years. So, you know, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the graduate ceremony this year, but also I wanted to, you know, to get from you, from, you know, the guru, so to speak, you know, what do you think are the qualities that make a good interior designer?
I mean, there are qualities and there are sort of qualifications, aren't there? I mean, there's what you
Yeah.
need to know, all the practical things, the knowledge and the skills. And then I would put above that a professionalism and an ability to communicate well, which I suppose comes down to fundamentally to people skills, because it's a people industry. It's always been that. And then the other thing is, it's that innate creativity, that little bit of originality that's your USP, that's going to make you stand out and be different. And it's very hard to quantify. But sometimes, you know, I meet somebody and I'd interview, and I even see their first creative exercise, and I think there's something really exciting here. And then you see that come through in their project work and what they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just, you know, it's interesting because there are things that you can learn and a skill set that you can have. But I absolutely right. It's about liking people, about wanting to help people, I
Yes.
think, and wanting to, make them have a really good experience. So, and it's also attention to detail. But I think you're absolutely right. So can you tell me a little bit about how the graduate ceremony is going to be different this year? Because it's a big thing on our KLC calendar. So, how have you managed to or do it? What's happening?
Well, first of all, the show was the first thing because everyone was so disappointed they couldn't have their graduate show on site as usual. So that's online. And we've set it up, and I've been watching, tuning in most days to see how it's progressing, and it is looking fabulous. And of course, as we said to the students, your on-site exhibition is 2 days. This will be up for a year.
Yeah.
So, employers will be able to dip in and out and see the work.
Yeah.
And we are organizing private virtual tours for employers to go around looking at the work, as well as their ability to go straight on the website and see it. And that will be launched on the 21st of July. In fact, anybody can click on and look at it. And on that same day will be the live graduation with a wonderful guest speaker, with contributions from 2 international students. We will see people celebrating their graduation as their names are read out. I will be announcing the top students. And then immediately after the graduation itself, you'll be able to click on the KLC website and see the list of industry and project awards. And this year we have vastly extended that to try and compensate for some of the disappointment for everybody. So we've gone out to, all the kind of big names we know and said, look, would you be interested in giving an award this year? Which means getting very involved, doing the judging, recording a message and comments, and of course sparks interest in the students' work because they get to see a whole short list of work, and so it's creating a buzz around careers already. So then you'll be able to click on and go through all those fantastic awards. So it's not the experience that everybody graduating hoped for when they signed up, but we hope it's going to be as positive and exciting as it could be in the circumstances.
Absolutely. So remind me again, how can people access this? Do they just go on the KLC website and they will find, a graduate exhibition and they can see everything there?
Absolutely. And if they go on the KLC website in the next day or 2, they'll get full instructions as to how they can also go, I think it's on YouTube, to see the live broadcast of the graduation itself.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll be tuning in, definitely.
Try not to muff it in that case.
Well, the thing is as well, I know that you always have, advice for, graduates, starting out on their career path, this really new and exciting career, and you will always give them some advice. So what advice do you have for, graduates starting out, at the moment, particularly in this industry, or particularly during this crisis?
Well, I don't think I would do anything differently because of the crisis, except, not to worry too much, not to panic, because the job will happen. They are going to come back. Geeta, who, as you know, heads up our wonderful career service, tells me that there are lots of things going on. She's been in touch with something like 600 designers, and there's a really good buzz going on. So generally my advice would be, when you go into practice, especially when you're new, never be afraid to ask. Don't wing it. So, just ask the questions, get it right. Remember that the client is king. It's easy to get a little bit arrogant about, a little bit of a personal take on things. This is what I want to do. The client is the overriding thing. And then it's, you mentioned it earlier, Nicola, it's the attention to detail. And that's in your designs, because I think that's what sets you apart as a designer, as a professional designer from an amateur. It is your ability to pin down all the detail, but also recording all the detail. And I can never stress that enough, because graduates I know who've got themselves into trouble with clients, this has been the problem. clients change their minds, and you know, why shouldn't they? So they might say they changed their minds and now they wanted 6, not 4 dining chairs. You go away and order it. You have not got that all in writing. They say, no, I didn't. I only want 4 chairs. You've ordered 2. Who's going to pay for that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, these days, the software is there to help you. It's so much easier than it used to be. The systems and the methodology is there. But, you know, every little conversation you have on the phone, everything, you note it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree. You save yourself all sorts of trouble, and it's just for the benefit of both parties, because
absolutely,
there is so much detail and there's so much, there's a massive amount of administration and organization and detail. You know, I think even, you know, I was ordering some armchairs and sofas for a client job recently before coronavirus, and we were ordering, you know, different fabrics that had to be interlined also, so it was going to like 4 different places before the client. So the level of work involved in just making sure the right fabric was ordered, it went to the right place, the fabric was interlined, and it went to the upholsterer, and then all of that got delivered to the client. You know, it was, you know, spreadsheet upon spread, and that's just one tiny part of the job. So yes, I would completely agree, and it just means that you can look back and because you will never be able to remember everything.
No, absolutely, and it's, you know, in a design practice, it might be that you start a job and for some reason you move on, you move away, and somebody else has to take it over.
Mm.
So, you know, you've got to leave it in such a stage they can pick up on every detail.
And all the information is there. Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, in KLC's almost 40 years, what are you most proud of?
I mean, the thing that always gives me the biggest buzz is seeing the success of students, and that can be measured in lots of different ways. Yes, you know, some of them have gone on to be very big names in the design industry, but people come to us so often when they're changing their lives, and it's just wonderful to see that the satisfaction that that's brought them, because they're doing something creative.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity is something that doesn't leave you alone. You know, if you've got that innate creativity, you have to use it at some stage in your life, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of having helped put things on a more professional footing for the interior design industry, but for me, it's always been foremost about the people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that leads us very, very nicely into my next question, which is about KLC's Foundation, Design Changes Lives. Jenny, you couldn't have phrased that answer better for me. But you know, tell me about this, because you've set up this foundation. So, what is it, and what does it do, and what are the aims?
Well, it's something that's always changing, but I mean, there was something that struck me as the school developed, was that design, again, perhaps because of this professionalism, the ability of designers to make a difference in people's lives has become so strong. And as you know, one of the things we do for the on-site courses is that they do a group project every year and a community project. And it's a real project. So we've been able to help with community centers, with schools, with hospitals, refuges for battered wives. You know, the list goes on and on. And that's a wonderful way. I mean, sometimes the foundation contributes towards that particular setup. So it was enabling design to make a difference to people's lives. It also starts at the other end, because in order to get designers into training, you have to make it more accessible. So part of this was to set up a competition that made more young people out there in schools aware of design as a career, offered them a prize of a course so that somebody could do that. And also, on top of that, we have scholarships and bursaries. So again, that's opening up the ability to go and train to be a designer. And I really notice at interview how much prospective students respond to this whole concept, because in this slightly, even before coronavirus, our lives have been very fast changing. It's been a strange time. And I think the concept of a career that isn't just something fluffy, it's not just about pretty fabrics and wall coverings, gorgeous as those are, but it's about something much more meaningful, an ability just at the residential level to make somebody's home more of a escape, somewhere they can relax better, work better for them. And then you take that up to where people work, where they go for leisure, where they go for medical treatment, and you're making all those things better through design. It just makes it feel such a positive thing to be involved with. So the foundation is very, very small fry, but it's there to enable people to go into a career, to make them aware of it, and where possible to help with particular projects, that have a particular resonance and meaning, probably ones that students have been directly involved with.
Yeah, and truly life-changing, which it is for both the students, I think, who are involved in those, and the recipients. It's where design really is making, a huge difference. Now, there was a question I wanted to ask you as well, which I had just popped into my head, but I wanted to ask you about KLC Connect. Which is something that we do at KLC. So which kind of, it is kind of part of Design Changes Lives, but on a sort of a different kind of level. So can you tell me about KLC Connect?
Yes, I love KLC Connect. It's
Why?
a great new edition, and it's run by a steering panel, and that's made up of industry supporters, some KLC staff, alumni, and student representatives. So, we get together once a year and we talk about what value really we can add to people studying at KLC. And the idea of it is to help prepare people better for employment, to make them feel more a part of the design community, and add another interesting layer to their studies. So, we might have, we're just about to do in the autumn a series of webinars reflecting on the changes in that sort of post-pandemic, can't speak this morning, period. But we've had, wonderful evenings with designers when we've had 14, 15 designers, a bit like a speed dating evening where the students have been able to go around and talk to designers for 5 or 10 minutes, then go to a different type of designer, yacht to hospitality to commercial, etc. We've had suppliers evenings, we've had special, been hosted at studio visits. The list goes on, but it's a really nice way of adding value to the studies that students have with us, and as I say, making them just feel more a part of the design community. So it's something that's I've found very positive in the last year or two. It's a good new addition.
Yeah, I think so too, because as you know, I studied at KLC a long time ago, but one of the selling points and USPs of KLC for me, as well as for a lot of students I interview all the time for courses. So for us, one of the key things is KLC's reputation and networks in the industry, because you want to do this course and you want to get out and work, you want to be industry ready. So this is just another level, and it's open to all students, on whatever course you're on. And it's just another level of that networking and integration and industry links. So it's a really great way of facilitating that for students. So yeah, I love KLC Connect as well. Now, Jenny, we're almost at the, well, I'm just down to my last question. I can't believe that we're nearly at the end of this chat. I could stay here all day and find out all your thoughts on all aspects of design. But for my last question, I guess, and it's on a personal note, really. And I just wanted to know, what have you missed most during this lockdown period, and what have you enjoyed most?
Well, obviously I've missed my family.
Yes.
I've it's been very, as a positive thing, one of the things I have enjoyed is being able to spend more time with my husband. That's been wonderful. We've rubbed along very happily together in a nice routine, but I've missed my family, I've missed my friends, and I've missed my colleagues at work. I really miss that opportunity. No Zoom, no Google meeting for me is as effective as just being able to move around, to talk to people. With the students, I know instantly if they're happy, if they're not, if I'm on site. So I have missed that. Yeah, it's been lovely to be at home. It's enabled me to join a choir again online. I couldn't fit that in with my normal work, so I've done a bit of ballet online. That's been fun. And I've enjoyed cooking properly, using up leftovers, which I love doing that creatively. So silly little things, but
Yeah.
they've been fun.
These are the things that matter, aren't they? It's always the simple things, you know, that we will cherish and look back, and you know, difficult as this situation is, you know, hopefully, you know, there are, you know, kind of benefits that we will all have that we will carry through. So thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Nicola. Really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Pleasure's all mine, Jenny. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can do this again soon. Have another chat about another aspect of design. But thank you so much.